Welcome to this episode of the Law of Relevancy podcast. Today we have one of the leaders in commercial real estate in the Tampa Bay area, Mike DiBlasi. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
So it's been an interesting road to get to the point where you're at, hasn't it been?
I guess so. I hope so.
You're telling me. Yeah, so one of the things in show prep and learning a little bit about you, Mike, I was really impressed with the journey that you've been on to get in the position that you're in, and it's one that's really ripe with experience. And one of the things that I felt really connected to was the fact that you were very involved in athletics growing up.
Yeah, I think I come from a long lineage of sports enthusiasts. I wouldn't say top tier athletes, but sports enthusiasts. And so when I was a kid, I played whatever sport was in season, which is not how things are done now. Now these kids focus on one sport and one sport only. So
especially in baseball.
Especially in baseball. We're not doing that right now with my kid. But so I enjoyed playing sports. You don't realize the lessons you're learning when you're playing team sports until you get older. But sports was kind of my avenue to make friends and find out what I was made of as a kid and take it as far as I could.
And you grew up here in countryside in Clearwater.
Yeah, I grew up in Clearwater. I've been living in Tampa pretty much since I graduated college.
Did you ever think you'd end up at FSU as a starting closer or captain of the baseball team?
No, not at any time. I used to watch them play in the College World Series when I was in high school, and I went on a trip up there with a friend and thought that would be unbelievable. And based upon the lack of interest I had from college programs, I'm not sure anybody thought I would have played baseball there.
How did you end up at FSU? That was a top tier program then.
Yeah. I'll tell a funny story. I sat down my senior year of high school and thought, what do I really want in life? At that point, it was two things. One, I wanted to date a specific girl, and the other was I wanted to play baseball at Florida State. So I started leaving messages on the answering machine of the recruiting coordinator at Florida State. Just out of happenstance, their top recruit was pitching. They came to watch him. I pitched against him.
Oh.
And I beat him like 8-0.
Wow.
And so they had seen me pitch once, but that wasn't really their focus. And so I think I kind of wore them down to the point where they needed a left-handed pitcher. They knew I was desperate, so they didn't have to give me.
This kid's motivated.
They're like, we don't have to give him probably much scholarship or any scholarship, and he'll come. Because in baseball, you only get 11.7 scholarships for 35 or 40 kids.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it all kind of happened pretty quickly, and I really didn't have any other options. Nobody else was recruiting me.
Who told you to leave all those messages on the recruiting coordinators?
Nobody.
You just figured that out.
Yeah, the way I was raised was like, if you want something, you got to go and get it. My parents, God bless them, I love them. We didn't have a whole extra growing up as a kid, and I probably started working on when I was 12 or 13 because I had to pay for half of whatever I wanted. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of instilled in me that nobody's just going to give it to you, and I really had nothing to lose. Nobody was recruiting me. I take that back. I got recruited by Charleston Southern, and I remember when the coach called me and said, "Hey, we want you to come up on Friday. We're playing a series and we'd like to show you around." I said, "Perfect. Can you send me my flight information?" And he goes, "Hey, Mike, we're Charleston Southern, bud. We don't fly recruit stuff." He goes, "But you're more than welcome to drive up with your dad and we'll show you around." And I told my dad, I'm like, I don't want to get in the car and drive up there. He's like, "That's the only school that even has offered to talk to you about playing baseball." So quickly went from that to I kind of weaseled my way into Florida State. They gave me a 3% scholarship to say I was on scholarship. And they basically told me, "You'll be on the team in the fall and, we'll see where it goes from there."
But you got to play a lot.
I did. I was fortunate. I was telling somebody the other day, because I was up in Tallahassee, when you come in as a freshman, they sit you down in the tradition room and there's probably like 20 or 25 freshmen that all think they're going to start. Except for me.
Of course.
Right? And so they sit you down and they say, "Hey, real quick, look to the guy at your left and look to the guy at your right. In 12 months, neither one of them will be here." And you're just like, what? So it was very quickly, I had to have the right mindset of like, I'm going to survive. I don't care what I have to do. So for me, I didn't go out a lot early on. can't say I was studying, but I was really focused on like, this is an unbelievable opportunity that I need to capitalize on.
Well, there's a lot of distractions at FSU, and the fact that you wanted to be with one girl instead of everything that was there probably helped you.
That was high school. She went elsewhere, so that probably worked out well. But so I kind of like weaseled my way in. My freshman year, first game of the year, we were #1 team in the country.
Oh my!
And I got to pitch in the game, and I mean, it was on TV, and I imagine people that grew up around me playing baseball were thinking, how in the heck did this guy get on Florida State and he's pitching as a true freshman?
That gives me I'm getting goosebumps just hearing about that. That's amazing.
So I kind of then, you know how it is. You're like, I'll just be happy to be on the team. Then you're on the team and you're like, I'll be happy when I play. And then when you play, I'll be happy when I do well. So you just keep raising the bar.
Yeah, I actually know a little bit about that from personal experience. I never actually got to play, but I did play college athletics. I played football on a ACC school team. And I remember getting like my workout clothes in a locker thinking that, all of my dreams have come true. It was amazing.
Yeah. So for me, that was kind of living my dream, and I tried to make the best of it. And in hindsight, I had a pretty good career. I pitched in 3 College World Series. I led the ACC in saves one year. I have one record as a reliever, and it was tied about 10 years ago by Jameis Winston.
And that was the lowest ERA?
That was the fewest amount of earned runs given up in a season, and so he tied it. And so I mean, nowadays I would like to think it won't be broken, but needless to say, I'm happy that I still show up in the back of the media.
1.14 is pretty good.
Yeah, and back then the bats were juiced. I think I had some good fortune and got put in the right situations, but at the end of the day, I
think they used metal bats back then, didn't they?
Yeah, and they still do now. The bats they're not as lively now because guys were getting really hurt. That was back when they were making the bats for the ball to really jump. So a lot more home runs back then than there are now.
Wow, and so you got in your first game on the #1 ranked FSU Seminoles. Is it because you were left-handed and like?
Yeah, well, again, kind of fortunate. 2 of my teammates that were high recruits had what they now call Tommy John surgery. They were one of the first guys in college to have Tommy John. So they
had it before the season?
Yeah, they were out for the whole year. And so me and one other freshman kind of got an opportunity to fill those spots. And so, you get in there and you make the most of it.
All right, so being a pitcher, like I was a place kicker, but being a pitcher, I think it's probably a lot. I mean, you talk about the composure of somebody having to kick, a winning field goal or whatever, but as a pitcher, every single pitch is that way, especially as a closer.
Yeah, so I'd say it's probably fairly parallel. I mean, the game's on the line. It's up to you. Mm-hmm. And if it works out, you're going to get a lot of pats on the back. If it doesn't, you're going to get a lot of fingers pointed at you.
So have you always been just naturally good at dealing with composure?
I don't know that
having composure.
All I knew was I wanted the ball when the game was on the line, and that I felt like that helped me elevate my performance.
Yeah,
and I had the ability to really lock in and focus. What I know for certain is it was not longer than an inning, because anytime I ever pitched an inning, came out and then went back out the next inning, the adrenaline was gone. It was hard to start a new inning. So I realized I was really good at put me in there for 3 outs, and I'll lock in mentally. I'll go away to this alternative universe where I thought I was somebody totally different than I was, because I was not. If you saw me warming up, you wouldn't say this guy's going to strike out 3 batters in a row. I just didn't have that level of talent.
Pragmatics.
Yeah, so I had to in my mind. I thought I pretend like I threw 100 miles an hour. I threw 85 miles an hour. So it was perception and reality there, but. So I would just lock in for a short period of time, and at the end of the day, you kind of look at it and go, you either want the ball or you don't want the ball.
And I wanted the ball.
Yeah, you want the ball. I've realized as I get older, I have control issues. So that probably fed into it too. You don't realize it when you're a 19-year-old kid, but you do when you're a 45-year-old adult.
So to control issues, today you lead 200 employees ish.
Yeah. So, and the funny part is, I've come with peace that I don't have any control over anybody, and
that's an important lesson.
Yeah, you can't get that many people all moving in the right direction at the same time, but you can try.
That's called leadership.
Yeah. If you're not climbing uphill, you're not leading.
That's great. So, lessons from your earlier days as an athlete, I mean, having to have that kind of composure, dealing with adversity that you might deal with. I mean, the Orlando Sentinel wouldn't let me read the rest of the article, but I heard that there was maybe a grand slam hit against you in a College World Series, maybe the seventh inning or something.
So we lost in 1999. We lost the national championship to Miami by 1 run. And the game before that, we played 13 innings against Stanford. It's one of the greatest college baseball games in history. And it wouldn't have been a great game if I'd have just done my job. And so that was about as small as I've ever felt in my entire life.
Really? I'm sorry I brought it up.
Yeah, the only good news is if you went to the bathroom or went and bought some popcorn, I was in and out of there so fast you may never have known that I actually pitched. But when you looked at the scoreboard, you realized they scored a lot of runs really fast.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point about having composure. I mean, it's how do you keep it together when you're faced with that kind of adversity? Yeah,
it's hard. The loneliest place in sports is either kicking a field goal or being out on the pitcher's mound. And so you just got to keep going.
Well, that was one thing I learned about you and doing show prep, of course. Being in real estate, there's business cycles, there's ups and downs. There was, the last downturn that we had, I think you were working in the industrial kind of sector of real estate, right?
Yeah.
It got pretty rough out there, didn't it?
Yeah. So ironically, industrial is really good now. So our industrial professionals now are having career years. Yeah. When I was doing industrial, it was like where they put people that they didn't think were going to ever really make it because there wasn't a lot of money in it. And my bank account showed that. But
it was cool because seeing you've touched so many different parts of real estate and just learning about how you've dealt with, I was referencing some of the adversity back in the last downturn. I saw an article written about you in a publication called The Observer. Mm-hmm. And it sounded to me like there was a point in your career where you were really up against the wall and so what did you do in that situation? Tell us a little bit about the situation. What did you do? How'd you handle it? Yeah, so I started my career as a CPA. I did it for about 3 years, and I realized this was not bringing me fulfillment. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the fact that somebody was determining my value. So I decided, let's get into real estate. And the more I thought about it, commercial seemed to make sense because it was less emotional than residential and more financial numbers based. Sure.
But it's an extremely hard arena to get into.
It's a long sales cycle.
And so I finally got in. I joke, I finally got in. I remember when I got hired at Cushman & Wakefield, I'd go around the office asking all these high-level, powerful people if I could help. And, nobody had time to teach me anything. And then, boom, 2008, the crash happened 2 years into my career. And now everybody had time for me, but I had to make money and pay my bills. So I remember my dad saying, see, I told you should never left accounting. You'd still have a really good job. You'd actually be making money. And so I do tell young people, I remember when I was paying, I had an interest-only mortgage with a home equity line, and I was paying my mortgage interest payments with checks from my home equity line. So every month my loan was just going up and up and up.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was telling you earlier, my wife would like to say that you were beyond broke until you met me. So in the downturn, a lot of my counterparts that were younger at that time, I was in my 20s, they all left the business, right? I mean, you have to go get a job, you have to pay your bills. And I just, for whatever reason, I said, I'll figure it out. I'll survive. I didn't have a wife or kids or a family or anybody, dependent on me. So I kind of did that. And then there was this unique opportunity with a big real estate company, and they had one in-house salesperson role. And I knew what the guy was that was leaving the job to move back to Michigan. I don't know why he did that, but I knew how much money he was making. He was like 7 times what I was making. And so me and 60 other people tried to get that job. And so I kind of had to figure out, how do you become one of 60, knowing I didn't have a ton of experience, but I knew if I got the opportunity that, they wouldn't regret hiring me. So luckily that all worked out. That was kind of a turning point in my career.
Well, tell us what you did. Teach us so we can do that.
Well, I try to get creative. in our business, when you sell a property, sometimes you'd put an offering memorandum together, and it's this nice fancy book. It spells out all the things you're going to do to market the property and whatnot. So I did something similar. So I really learned the entire portfolio. I knew every competing property. I knew every deal in the market. I was taking pictures on the weekends. I spent like $300 putting these books together, $300 I didn't have, putting these books together. And I would work on it in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep, because I knew this was a real, unique opportunity, and I needed to do what I needed to do. I also was the guy that was hiring me. I remember my wife, God bless her, at the time was my girlfriend. She paid for us to go on a cruise because I didn't have any money. And I would call him from the sea, like back when it was like $10 a minute. And I just say, hey, I'm just wanted to check in. I'm thinking about this opportunity and find out what can I do to differentiate myself. And just constantly following up with him and sending him information. And I thought, you know what, this guy's either going to hire me because he thinks I'm going to do a good job, or he may hire me because
he doesn't want you working for somebody else.
Or I'm just driving him crazy. But I'm at least going to get him to an inflection point where he says, hey man, back off. We're not going to hire you. And thankfully, after 5 months of me pursuing the opportunity, he finally hired me. And he's like, I knew I was going to hire you really early on in the process. I said, well, why didn't you tell me that? I couldn't sleep for 5 months. So that was a really awesome opportunity, and one that I thought was going to last the majority of my career. But, everything has seasons, and that company decided to sell all their Tampa properties. Yeah. And so I had to find something else to do.
And so you've moved on, and you've had a really diverse set of different commercial real estate, which really kind of puts you in the perfect position to do what you're doing now.
Yeah, it's, life is a culmination of experiences. And so I never thought my different experiences would lead me to where I'm at now. It's with CBRE, but it definitely has been an advantage for me because I understand enough about what most people are doing in the office to be able to have conversations. Whereas there are people that have taken similar roles to mine that don't have the background I have. And it probably makes it a little tougher. The learning curve's a little higher. So I've been able to leverage those experiences and the relationships that I built all those years working in the industry, that now I'm working with people that I've known for 15, 20 years that I never thought we'd work together, that now we're working on the same team. And, it's a pretty cool thing.
I think that's really cool how that happens too.
Yeah.
Like you'll either work with somebody, 20 years ago, and then now all of a sudden there might be in a position of authority or decision-making. And next thing you know, you're working again.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about leadership for a second, because, you even brought it up, some of that transition from having all of the control as the pitcher, right? And now all of a sudden you're leading, over 100 people, and there's no way that one person can keep track of, it can micromanage like that many people. Like you don't want to, right?
Yeah,
so what have you learned about leadership? How did you develop those skills to be able to do what you're doing now?
Yeah. So, I've captained sports teams and all that. And you don't probably think at the time, like I'm developing leadership skills. Mm-hmm. So I've always had it in me, but I didn't really have any roles where I had to bring it out. And so that was great because it was a growth opportunity for me. So when I was thinking of taking this position, ultimately I took it. I've spent the last 4 years focusing really on leadership development. Mm-hmm. I have no desire to manage. I don't even like that word, manage people, right? Because people either have the fire inside or not. But I do like the thought of trying to lead people to somewhere and us all be together, going to the same place, just like you would in sports, right? You either win the game or lose the game as a team. Everybody has jobs, that are an important part of the game. But at the end of the day, you're judged as a team. And so our business is very much a team sport now, which I like. It wasn't that way when I started, but I've spent a lot of time reading books and trying to develop my leadership skills. I still have a long way to go. I think for me, I try to come from a perspective of I meet everybody on our team at whatever level they're at, right? So I try to spend twice a year, I meet with everybody in the office for 30 minutes and really just try to understand them better, learn more about them, create a connection. And give them an opportunity to share with me something that they think we could be doing better, or that there is a frustration in their job. I don't know, like a lot of my counterparts don't do that. It's a big lift, but I want people to feel like Mike isn't just there in the corner office, only cares about certain people. I want everybody to know that when you're on my team, I deeply care about you. I want a relationship with you. Right. And so I hope that people pick up on that. My goal would be, people have options now, right? The employees all can go really wherever they want. So
you can almost go anywhere you want and not even leave your house.
and not even leave your house.
Right.
And so I'm a very relational person. So for me, I love to see people. I love to get the team together because I know really magical things happen when people come together. I don't feel that way about everybody being virtual, trying to work as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Our best performing teams all spend time together. And so that's been a big struggle from a leadership perspective. I took this job in 2019. Never in a million years did I think I'd have to encourage people to come into the office. Right. And now we're in an environment where, I spend time really talking to people about what they're trying to accomplish, knowing that some of their frustrations or their interpersonal conflicts could be resolved if they just spent more face-to-face time with their team.
That's true. That's totally true. Yeah. I agree with that 100%. So intuitively, you've got something inside of you. You're calling the recruiter as a 17-year-old, right? Trying to get into FSU. You're calling this person who controls this job that you wanted so bad that you became so prepared for. You're meeting with your team twice a year. No one's told you to do that. You said your counterparts aren't necessarily doing that, right? Inside of you, you've got this fire or this hunger, this desire, and it sounds to me like you're trying to identify that in other people also. Yeah,
so for me, and I mean this 100% truth, like I enjoy seeing other people succeed. So for me, I like the fact that it's not, I don't, right? I could say I don't do anything. What do I do on a daily basis, right? I don't do a lot. So I love to see people succeeding. So I've recruited a lot of our team over since I've joined. And what I really love is that the feedback I get from them is that they're having a much better experience being part of my team or our team. And they're also having more success. And so that brings me joy. I don't need to have, I don't need to have all the money in the world. I have more than I probably deserve or need. And so it's like, why not try to help other people get to where they're going? And that's the coach in me.
Right.
I think I'd love to be a college baseball coach. Unfortunately, back when I graduated, you had to work for free for probably 5 years. They never made any money. Now they make real money.
Yeah.
It's probably a little too late for me, but that's the aspect of it that I really like. And again, there's probably people in leadership roles that are there to just get to the next level. I'm there because I think, I want to see all of my team get to wherever they want to go in their life's journey.
Yeah. Well, in real estate, there is, you can make a lot of money. There's uncapped earning potential theoretically. So a lot of people see that and they want to get involved in real estate because, they've got their eyes on, if I'm really good at this, I could make a lot of money, and you can. How do you identify the right people to work with, the people who have the right kind of hunger like you did?
Yeah, so that's the tough part. So the reality is I probably have 2 to 3 calls per week with either young professionals or college graduates that all have identified commercial real estate as what they want to do, and that CBRE is a company they want to work for, and Tampa's a market they'd love to live in. And so there's more of them than there are opportunities.
Yeah.
And so you have to try to ask good questions about what's their real motivation. I do. If you tell me you played a team sport growing up and you suffered through adversity and you weren't given everything in life that you ever wanted, and you know how to work well with the others, and you're likable, and you've got an inner desire, and that you can know that you're not going to make a lot of money for a while, and that you're going to be frustrated, but you're going to bounce back. Those are all the things that you realize if somebody has that and you put them in the right system, they're going to be successful.
Yeah.
And so that's not something you can really teach somebody. Not to say there aren't people that had it better in life growing up that are just as if not more successful in our business. But that's what I'm looking for. The kind of the underdog, what are you trying to prove in life? Who are you trying to make you be proud of you? Whatever that is. I think those are the intangibles that kind of separate people from some of the competition.
This heart. Right.
Yeah, the heart aspect. If you're just like, hey, I want to make money, but I want to work from home and I want to work-life balance and all these things, you're like, that's not a winning formula. If
we're here to hustle.
Yeah, you're gonna hustle. You're gonna work way too much your first few years, and you're gonna wonder why you're doing what you're doing. And you're going to hope that it works out. And you need somebody to mentor you, and you're going to do a lot of like the jobs that nobody wants to do. And if all that goes really, really well, you might be able to make some money. Yeah. But there are people that I can point to say, look at this professional. They've been here 4 years.
Yeah.
They now at the age of 20 years old are making 3 times what their parents ever made when they were growing up.
That's right.
And so what's their motivate? Like for some of them, it's I have other family I want to support, or I want to give back, or whatever it is, I want more than what I had when I was growing up. You got to have something in there to drive you.
Well, let's talk about some of what you have there at CBRE. So you mentioned system, right? You put them in the right system, they can succeed. That's one of the advantages of being in part of a larger organization. And you guys are a much larger commercial real estate group than most of them ones that are around, right? So what are those things that you guys have in your system that you look to develop in your system that help to guarantee, success or enable success?
So kind of back to the team sport aspect. When I started in my career, I was not on a team. I was part of a program that was supposed to help me identify a team to join, which ultimately I did. Now we really want to identify you to work on a team day one. Mm-hmm. And when I say team, like they need to function like a team. They need to agree to spend time with you, although that may never pay off for them, which is hard because in our business, there is a lot of short circuiting or falling out. And you could be a senior professional and spend time with 10 junior professionals and none of them ever pan out, or maybe they do and they go do something different. So there's no guarantee that it's ever going to be paid back. So what we've found is if we have the right team and they're functioning as a team, they have the right leadership, which to me is high performing people that care about each other and care about our community and kind of get it, right? Do you get it in life? Like what we do, we're not saving lives here, people. We're working in real estate. So, are you a good friend and husband and father, and do you make time for the important things, but at the same time do you have a high expectation from yourself from a professional level?
Can you understand your client's needs?
Yeah, can you
quickly?
And are you somebody people want to know, like, and trust? And so if we have a team, which all of our teams operate that way, I feel really good about bringing in a young person into that environment, because I know that if they don't make it, it's not because we didn't put them in with the right people. It's because they may not have what it takes to make it.
Yeah, they just might not. It's not for everybody.
No, and that's okay.
It's perfectly fine. Well, let's talk about that environment. So famously, real estate is always part of macroeconomic factors and an environment. And we've seen real estate go through a lot of cycles. And a lot of times it's an indicating factor of what's happening in the economy. What are you seeing today that's happening in our region's commercial real estate that can help shed some light or shine some light on what we should all be aware of?
Yeah. So first and foremost, Tampa Bay is a great place to live, right? For quality of life. Yeah. And other people now know that, and for that reason, they're moving here. So that's why your house value has gone up. Mm-hmm. We have benefited greatly from that inward migration, which fuels our commercial real estate market. So you think about it very simply. I want to buy something on my phone and I want it at my front door in an hour. Well, it's going to come from a warehouse, mm-hmm. and that warehouse needs to be fairly close to where you live. So that's why when you drive on I-4, you see those 1 million square foot warehouses that we never had up until 6 years ago. And so retail, right? People thought the pandemic was dead, or retail was dead because of the pandemic. Our retail has never been hotter. I mean, there is not enough space to fulfill all the requirements of retailers that have identified Tampa Bay as a place they want to be.
That's great news.
And then you'd say, with the housing crunch, we do a lot of apartment community sales. And so there's tons of apartments continuing to go up, trying to feed that demand. And then on the office side, people never going to go back to the office. Our Tampa has fared very well in the office landscape, much better than most of the major markets across the country, and so we've really gotten a lift from the post-pandemic world, and so you take all that and you say, there's forces outside of all of those wonderful things, mm-hmm. that impact our world, like interest rates. So our investment sale numbers are significantly down because right now
It's harder to buy something.
It's harder to buy something. It's hard to know what will those interest rates be when you want to sell it in 3 to 5 years. And so it's hard for you to understand what can I really pay for this asset.
Does it ever attract even bigger businesses when interest rates are up? Because it would require a business to maybe pay cash for something instead of because the mortgage on a property.
I mean, most of the commercial properties are all leveraged, right? And so they're trying to get certain returns for their investors. Right now, there's a bit of a disconnect between the bid and the ask, and so that's why we're in this pattern where there's not a lot of properties trading hands, because we're still searching for we're in the price discovery mode, trying to figure out like what should the price really be of this asset, because 2 years ago it was here, and now we know it might be a little bit lower.
How off are we? Like what percent are we looking at?
Well, it probably depends on the type of asset, but
it's called warehouse space.
Yeah, so warehouse space, you take construction costs, right? Land costs are going up. You've got an interest rate crunch. I mean, lenders still want to lend on industrial, and then you've got to go find equity that want to participate with you if you're a sponsor, and try to put all that together. Well, 2-3 years ago, that was as easy as can come. People were selling assets,
beating down your door to do that.
Yeah. So we had clients we called a forward commitment on an asset that they were developing, where they had somebody that would buy it the day it got the certificate of occupancy, with or without a tenant in tow. And so that part of that's when the markets, because they're like, the price that I'm building it at today, I already know I can get that much more when I'm done, and I'm going to take my chips off the table. That's not where we're at right now. So there's not a ton of trades, but we'll continue to hopefully see the markets loosen up as the year goes on.
Do you feel like it's hit the bottom, or do you feel like we have a little ways to go?
Well, on the commercial side, there is a discount to prices from 12, 18 months ago. But there hasn't been this dramatic dip. There's no fire sales out there right now, there's a lot of investors sit on the sidelines waiting for
maybe other parts of the country, but not here, because we have people migrating.
Right. We don't have a lot of distressed assets, just because of the popularity of the region, which is a good thing. So I think long term, as long as people keep moving here, and we keep diversifying our jobs, the type of jobs we have a much bigger technology scene here than we used to.
We've had a lot of pharmaceutical companies move to town. We've got cybersecurity. A lot of major industries are coming to town.
Yeah, which is healthy. That's what you need. For a long time, we were known as a contact center, call center environment, back of the house for companies to shift off jobs to Florida, where there's lower cost of living. And we're pushing through that, and we'll continue to push through that. And that's, again, everybody benefits from an environment like that.
That's great insight. What else are you seeing out there in terms of where do you think, if you had to recommend, here's where I would invest, here's where I would put things, is there any advice you could give us?
That's a tough one because we by nature, a lot of our clients will come to us when they're putting a deal together and ask our producers, or even I've gotten in on some of them. It's like, they love it when their real estate provider wants to invest alongside of them.
Oh, geez, I wasn't even thinking of that. I was just thinking in general about where do you see our market growing to? What should we expect to continue to see?
Yeah, so you're going to continue to see the boundary of the region push outward, right? I mean, we have limitations because of the water that surrounds where we are.
Well, you mentioned I-4. There's plenty of room.
Correct.
On the way to Orlando.
So you think of Plant City, right? The Strawberry Festival's going on. It's a great little community. Plant City now has tons of warehouse space, and that's a big economic engine for them. They're turning farmland into real estate tax-paying industrial buildings. So you're going to continue to see that push along I-4. As you make your way to Orlando, I think you're going to continue to see those gaps fill in. Lakeland has become an extremely popular place for people to move to because of the affordability. You're still on the outskirts of the Tampa Bay area. So I think our region will continue to grow. We'll probably get some more densification in downtown. You look at downtown, and you've kind of seen some of the projects with the Heights Union, which is where Armature Works, is pushed the boundary of downtown up north. You've got the Water Street project there, which is amazing. That's filled in there, so a bunch of surface parking lots. You've got the project at Gasworks that's going to take place in Ybor. So you kind of see downtown continue to grow, which is pretty cool. We just need to figure out how to get a way to get all the people around town without having to all drive our cars.
That's for sure. Final question. Looking through some of the transactions you've been a part of over the years, you've worked with some very, very large corporations, some of the largest corporations in the world. Are there any tips you would give us as it relates to interacting with such large corporations as opposed to the smaller entities?
Yeah, no, obviously I work for a Fortune 120 company, so I live it and breathe it every day. It's funny. At the end of the day, there's always a person that's making a decision, right? You always think of large companies as like, well, the company wouldn't do that. There is always a person somewhere in that organization that's making that decision, just trying to figure out who that is and what's important to them, and whatever their goals or metrics are is how you kind of get through a lot of the stuff to get to where you can create a win-win outcome for everybody.
Plus you can still build that relationship.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, in our business, we work with a lot of real estate directors and CFOs, and they move around kind of like sometimes we move around. So, we're in a very relationship-driven business. So a lot of our customers, maybe our customer at 3 different stops they've made in their career, and it's a function of, did we do a really good job, and do they want to work with us again?
That's great advice, Mike. I really appreciate it. Where can people keep up with you, what you're doing around town?
So I'm at the Little League field 3 nights a week, Tampa Bay Little League, and I'm at the flag football games every Friday night. No, so all joking aside, I'm either working or spending time with my family. My kids are kind of in the wheelhouse of youth sports, and my dad always coached me as a kid, so I spent a lot of time on the athletic fields in hopes that these kids can take some of the lessons they're learning as young kids and roll them into life. I remind them all that if they ever become somebody famous, I'm going to take credit for their success.
There you go.
Coach Mike will be calling you and asking you for something.
And if you're a young real estate professional and you want to get in the room with Mike, leave voice messages.
No, you can actually send me an email. I will respond to you. I will make time for you. I know what it's like to be out there trying to create a name for yourself and try to find that first or that second opportunity. And I tell them all the same thing. I'm talking to you today. Remember, I might have been one of the few that's willing to spend time with you.
Right.
Because in 5 years, if you're not here and you're out doing really good things, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to remind you that I spent time with you when nobody else was willing to.
That's right.
So it's been kind of fun just talking to young people and seeing where they land. And a lot of them will send me emails or LinkedIn updates on where they are. It's fun to track their progress in hopes that maybe one day we'll find an opportunity for them to come join us at CBRE.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you can find us anywhere where podcasts are found. Thank you again for joining us on our podcast. It's great to learn more about you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.